At Wind River Resort and Casino, we like to celebrate life's little moments. Oh, and the big ones too, because around here, when you're completely in the moment, that's when the magic happens. Come in and find your moment at Wind River Resort and Casino.
Happy Friday morning to you. It's Coffee with Krueger, our Friday edition. We're getting ready for the weekend. And let's start off the show with a beautiful shot sent in by Tim Moore. It's the sunset in Lookout, California. And I tell you what, look out for that sunset. Absolutely gorgeous. You got to love a lot of these rural areas. Some of these, you get on some of these highways and there's just not a lot out there, but still just gorgeous when you kind of look at the surrounding area. You can see the mountains off in the distance, a beautiful sunset there. I want to thank Tim Moore for sharing that photo. And you can share your photos from the free Weather NorCal app. And if you don't have the app, be sure to download it today for free. Just search for Weather NorCal in the App Store and you can share photos just like Tim did, and you might see them right here on Coffee with Krueger and on the morning update as well. Take a look at a live shot from our Divine Sky camera right now, looking at the top of a Divine restaurant, looking over the Sacramento River. Now you'll notice a couple of things. Number one, the winds are blowing those trees around, and that's making things a little choppy out there on the Sacramento River. And we do have clear skies this morning, making for a gorgeous, gorgeous start to the day. Look at the birds out there hanging out, enjoying this beautiful Friday morning. Let's take a look at the temperatures out there right now. You can see about 64 degrees for Redding with the winds blowing. That's keeping those temperatures fairly mild for the valley, but the winds are not quite as strong for some of the mountain higher elevations. So as a result, we're actually below freezing in El Tourist at 31, 44 for Mount Shasta City, and mid to upper 40s right now on the coast. So here is your Krueger's Quickcast for your Friday, May 15th. We're going to go ahead and take a look at our skeeter meter for the week of May 11th. And you know, the Shasta Mosquito and Vector Control has a lot of great advice on what you can do to prevent breeding grounds on your property. And here are just a few here. Covers on boats, cars and RVs, tree holes in low areas, rain gutters, yard drains and French drains, street gutters and potholes. All these areas can be breeding grounds for mosquitoes should they have standing water. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about your property or the surrounding area, you can call the Shasta Mosquito and Vector Control and they will be glad to answer or address any concerns you may have. Let's get you out the door this morning, and maybe you're heading out to the pancake breakfast. Be sure to hold on to your hats or whatever it is that may be blown around, because it's going to be gusty out there. We're noticing those gusty winds out there this morning, again making for a mild start to the day temperature wise. Now there is some rain up to our north. That's because we do have the jet stream, the storm track, pointed at the Pacific Northwest, and that's to our north, and high pressure has been keeping us fairly dry and of course warm as well. There are some low clouds for some of you along the coast, but there will be some clearing this afternoon. We'll call it partly cloudy through most of the afternoon for the coast, but I do think that marine layer may return later tonight and into early tomorrow morning. Today, still warm, but I think most of us in the valley will dodge 90 degrees here for today. Otherwise, 70s and 80s for the higher elevations, and looks like around 60, give or take, for the coast. For tonight, we're talking mid-50s for the valley, 30s and 40s for the higher elevations, and somewhere in the mid to upper 40s for the coast. So I put the word windy in there for Sunday. Keep in mind, it's still going to be breezy, borderline windy today, tomorrow, and even Monday. But Sunday is the day. Sunday is the day that we do expect the strongest winds. You'll also notice a nice dip in our temperatures over the weekend before we see a bigger increase in our temperatures through next week. Now for the mountains and for the coast, also cooler weather over the weekend, warming up through next week. In fact, we're back into the 70s and 80s for the mountains by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. All right, let's take a look at that fire weather outlook. For that time of the year, we really need to pay attention to that, and especially when we have our first fire weather watch of the season issued by the National Weather Service. It was issued yesterday. Now, it's not going to take effect until tomorrow. So this is through the weekend and even through 8 p.m. Monday. But I will say this. Right in between Saturday, Monday, it's Sunday. That's when I expect the highest fire weather risk because the winds will be strongest and the humidity will be lowest. As we go through Sunday evening, Monday, the winds will start to slowly subside and shouldn't be as much of a concern. So you may have noticed, in particular for the valley, the winds were gusty last night. They're gusty again this morning and will be a gusty again through this afternoon. Let's keep that trend going through tonight. Tomorrow morning, gusty winds. Tomorrow afternoon, gusty winds, possibly upwards of over 30 miles per hour. Strongest winds, Sunday morning. You see that? 40 to even upwards of 50 miles per hour are a possibility. But look at this. By Sunday afternoon, evening in particular, still gusty, but the winds are starting to show signs of dying down. And especially as we go into your Monday and into your Tuesday, but still breezy. We're still talking over 20, 25 miles per hour, but at least not the 40 to 50 miles per hour. So we put this all together. The color coding on your map there, that is the fire weather risk. Green is low, yellow is low to barely getting in moderate, and then you start getting in the oranges, you start getting into elevated fire weather risk, deeper oranges and reds. That's when we really got to pay attention. But I will say this, typically during the fire season, in the heat of the summer and the dead of the summer, almost every day, in particular the valley, but even many of the mountain locations, see a lot of oranges on the maps. So that's nothing I'm terribly concerned about when we start seeing oranges. And in fact, there you can see on Friday today, we're barely getting to that orange for your for this afternoon. But the numbers there on their screen, that's the humidity levels. And they're getting lower, but they're going to be even lower by Sunday. So there you can see on Saturday, once again, we're kind of in that yellow, kind of in that low to moderate fire weather risk. Sunday, actually, it looks lower based on what we're seeing here, but look at the humidity levels. For the most part in the valley, single-digit humidity levels. It's getting dry. So despite the fact that highs will only be around 80 degrees, we're still looking at dry and windy conditions. So should a fire start, under those types of conditions alone, that fire can spread very rapidly, and that's why we need to be careful over the weekend. Now, we still have that low to moderate risk on Monday. Humidity levels are low, but I do expect them to increase as we go into Monday, Tuesday. And here's another kind of map that we look at to kind of help gauge what's going on and just kind of monitor what's going at that fire potential. And we've been this week in the low or no risk to low risk. So that's the green and yellow. When you start getting into the brown, that's the moderate risk. That's Sunday. Sunday has been the day I've been talking about all week long that I do expect the highest fire weather risk because of the stronger winds and the lower humidity. Because that's just outside of the category when we start getting into orange, when we can even categorize the orange as hot and dry or especially windy or dry lightning. That's the red. So we are definitely seeing that elevated fire weather risk, especially on Sunday, but on either side of that, Saturday and into your Monday, still that elevated fire weather risk. And once again, those winds that you see on your screen there from our Divine Skycam, right? That's indication of the winds that we are seeing and will see throughout the rest of the day. Taking a look at Lake Oroville, I don't see the winds blowing as much over there, it looks like. Let's see what it looks like in Chico. Yeah, if you look at the trees up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can see that wind blowing a bit there. So we are seeing those winds even down into Glenn and Butte counties. Let's see if the winds are blowing the camera around. Doesn't look like the winds are quite as strong down to the south on Highway 99 at Neal Road, but still some gusty winds. Now we still have that marine layer, believe it or not, over Bald Hill West. This is Hoopa Valley, but that marine layer has lifted. It's not down into the Hoopa Valley, and we should see some clearing there later this morning and afternoon. Looks like the camera was just transitioning out of Mount Shasta, but you can see Mount Shasta off in the distance there in that blurry image because the camera had just moved when it took a snapshot. Fort Jones, looking down at Scott Valley. We've got the clear skies out there this morning, and taking a look at Lassen Park, you have got Clear skies. I don't see any snow in the mountains either, a little bit. And this is looking at Crescent City this morning. Let's get you out to Crescent City. Oh, well, bummer. I was looking at it earlier this morning and it was just fine. Now it kind of froze up on us, so don't pay attention to that. Let's see here. All right, let's go ahead and get to our forecast. But before we do that, I also want to remind you that you can share your photos just like Tim Moore did. This is a sunset in Lookout, California, kind of in one of those rural highways that we have around here. Just a gorgeous shot. I want to thank Tim for sharing his photo. You can share yours from the free Weather NorCal app. Just make sure you got the app on your phone. It's free. It's an awesome app. All right, let's take a look at our sponsor of Coffee with Krueger, and that is our friends over at Wind River Resort and Casino. They've been the sponsor, by the way, of Coffee with Krueger since day one. So very grateful for their support of Coffee with Krueger and Weather NorCal in general. Now, Wind River always, they've always got something going on, right? They like to kind of keep everybody in the North State entertained. And the next big event that they've got going on is Friday, June 19th, the 12th annual Bacon and Brew Fest. Now, I always mention this. You got to make sure you reserve those tickets to make sure that you can get to that event. So once again, I want to thank Wind River for their support. Let's take a look at what some of you are kind of saying here. See what's going on, checking in this morning. We've got Rachel Maxey saying, morning, beautiful morning. We've also got Jackie Dixon saying, good morning from Trinidad. Hoping everyone has a great weekend. I hope you do too. Good morning. What do you know about this predicted record-setting El Nino event expected middle of the year? All right, so let me look something up here real quick. And we're going to go to a full screen. I want to address that, and we're going to talk about that here briefly. Not a ton, but let's see, El Nino watch. All right, here we go. I think that's it. That's not it. El Nino watch. Why is it not? Is that it? There it is. Okay. We're going to take you back to this. Good question. This is what everybody's talking about. And it kind of still, it's frustrating because I do whatever I can to kind of help, bring it down a bit. All right, so here's the deal. I did a video about a month ago explaining this because the term Super El Nino has been thrown out there, and that's frustrating because that's not even an official term. It's weak. It's weak, moderate, strong, and very strong. There is no such thing as a Super El Nino, okay? This El Nino is coming in, it's beginning to take shape, it's beginning to take form. That all being said, we are still under what the Climate Prediction Center says, an El Nino watch. What does that mean? Well, there's still a lot of factors coming into play. There are still a lot of things we don't know for sure just yet. We do know that we are entering into an El Nino, and that's here coming shortly for this month. It'll be here this month. All right, we will be in El Nino conditions. What we don't know at this point is the strength of the El Nino. So there are two things we can take from that. Number one, we don't know the strength. So to go around saying we have a super El Nino heading our way and we're going to be looking at massive flooding because of El Nino is irresponsible for anyone to start spewing that out in the public. That is irresponsible. Number two, since we don't know the strength of the El Nino, let's say it does get to a very strong El Nino. That still doesn't guarantee that we are going to see massive flooding in the area. Historically speaking, yes, during strong and very strong El Ninos for our area in particular, we do tend to see above normal rainfall, but not always massive flooding, okay? So that's very important. So I want you to just ease your mind from a lot of the things you might be seeing on social media about this Super El Nino and how it's going to be, an amazing winter. We're going to see a ton of rain, a ton of snow. There might even be flooding. It's possible, but it's not even coming close to guaranteed. We're talking about next winter, folks. We just got out of winter. We're almost a year out. And people are saying, oh yeah, it's going to be massive. We don't know yet. It's not 100% known the strength of the El Nino at this point. It's leaning toward a strong to very strong El Nino, granted, but not guaranteed. All right, so Rachel Maxey is saying, cutting out for me. I apologize. Hopefully it's not on my end. It sounds a little hyped to me, but it came from a meteorologist. Yeah, no, it probably did. And that's the frustrating part. It's becoming more and more common in the meteorological community for respected meteorologists to even hype up an event. And that's frustrating for many of us. So we can't police that. That's why it's important for you. And this is what I always tell people when I kind of discuss this. It's important to remember and take note who you're getting where you're getting your information from. Find sources that you trust and stick with those. If you see something that's too good to be true, go to your source and see what they have to say about it. Again, I'm not talking a whole lot about it because, again, there's still a lot of unknowns, and that's the important part. All right. I got off my high horse, but thank you, Curtis, for bringing that up because it is something that did need to be addressed. And, again, it's frustrating what happened to it. So once again, I want to thank Wind River for their support of Coffee with Krueger and weather NorCal in general. Let's get to our weather headlines. Let's get to the forecast. Highs going up and down through next week. So we're still on that roller coaster ride. But really the bigger headline, the winds, low humidity, the elevated fire risk this weekend, the fire weather watch through the weekend into next week. Weaker winds, though, are expected as we do go through next week, but still gusty winds at times for many. So let's get into our deeper dive forecast. We're going to talk about the winds, and we're going to talk about the temperatures. Those are the two main things with that fire weather risk. Winds this morning keeping things fairly mild, 64 degrees for Redding. Calmer winds in El Tourist, you're actually below freezing. 40 degrees for Wairika, temperatures mid to upper 40s for you along the coast. We do have these storm systems off to our west. We have what's called a zonal flow type pattern. You'll notice we don't have the clouds moving up and over a ridge. There is a ridge down here, okay? But the jet stream is to our north and it's flat. It's what we call a zonal flow pattern. You see all the storms and all the clouds? All of that is aimed right at the Pacific Northwest. That's where we've seen the clouds and the rain and slightly cooler temperatures. But this warmer air has been kind of expanding into Northern California, giving us the above normal temperatures. Now look at the long range. May 21st to the 25th, drier than normal conditions as predicted by the Climate Prediction Center. And that's a pretty good projection. Warmer than normal conditions are expected through May 25th. Now, the European forecast model in particular has been going back and forth on the potential for some rain possibly by around the 25th and 26th of this month. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It certainly would be nice, but I wouldn't say it's guaranteed. We're still a long ways out from there, but kind of gives you an idea. So there's that flat jet stream I was talking about. You see how it's all aimed, and really this is where the jet stream is right here, right at the Pacific Northwest. And that's why they've seen all the clouds and the cooler temperatures. But for us, this heat has been kind of expanding into our region, giving us those warmer temperatures. Now, this cooler air is diving down to the south and east. It's called an inside slider. I've actually kind of pointed this trend out on Monday and the potential for these gusty winds. And we've seen it really hold on strong that this is what's going to happen. And that's why we're seeing all these things materialize, right? Fire weather watch, gusty winds, of the works. This area of low pressure is going to do two things. Cool us off, only in the 80-degree mark, give or take, for the valley, but also help to elevate those winds. You see, you got the area of low pressure here, high pressure here. You see these white lines are isobars. Tightly packed isobars, gusty winds. That low pressure moves eastward. As it does, those isobars, they spread apart. As those isobars spread apart, what happens? Yeah, the winds start to die down. And that's what we got going on as we go to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. But see, that ridge is building in as we go through next week, and that's why we expect those warmer temperatures. Probably climbing back up into the upper 90s near the middle and latter part of the week, but I do expect another dip in our temperatures going into Friday and into that next weekend as well. So roller coaster ride with those temperatures. All right. Lake levels. All right. So first time in a while, look at this. A negative number for Lake Oroville. We've been seeing through the week minor increases in that elevation. Now we're seeing all three lakes are in that trend where we're seeing minor drops. And I have a feeling this is a trend that will continue through the rest of the summer. There you can see historical average still above normal. So we're still very healthy. Nothing to worry about there. Let's take a look at the wave heights. We actually do have a small craft advisory today, and we've got some gale warnings and watches for Saturday because those wave heights are going to be increasing. So just something to take, just bear in mind if you have to be on that small boat. So the winds eventually today will be from the north at 20 to 25 knots. There's that small craft advisory for today. Here's your neighborhood forecast, sponsored by Dignity Health and Grange Co-op. Here you go. Let's take a look at those temperatures for Trinity County. It's going to be a tad cooler than yesterday, but not by much. Still warm, but a drop in our temperatures over the weekend. Temperatures slowly increasing through next week. That's the trend for everybody, including the coast. Look at the coast, upper 50s through Sunday. Temperatures slowly increasing through Thursday. We're going to do the same thing for the inland areas, although just a bit more of a dramatic increase in those temperatures through next week, as well as Siskiyou County. Today, about 72 degrees for Wairika, 71 for Mount Shasta City, and Dunsmuir about 73 degrees. Modoc County also right around 70, give or take, increase in those temperatures after the weekend highs of only around 60. For the Eastern Mountains, in Susanville in particular, you're down into about 62 degrees on Sunday, back up the low 80s by Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Otherwise today, about 69 for Mineral Paradise, about 81 degrees. Here's your Valley neighborhood forecast. I think most of us should dodge that 90-degree mark for today. If some of you touch 90, don't be surprised. But temperatures are dropping significantly by the weekend. And I've got windy in there for Sunday. Keep in mind, it'll still be breezy, borderline windy Friday, Saturday, even Monday of next week. But the strongest winds will be on Sunday. 88 for Redding, 89 degrees for Red Bluff, 88 degrees in Palisadro and Whiskeytown, about 82 degrees. Here's your 7-day forecast for Redding. Again, those windy conditions. And, you know, that's one silver lining, if you will. If you want to try to find something that is going to give us some relief from the elevated fire weather risk, it's the lack of heat. You see, typically when we have very hot temperatures, gusty winds and low humidity, that's when we really start to elevate that fire weather risk. So with that being said, it's still going to be windy and it's still going to be very dry out there. We've got some fuels, so it doesn't take much, right? If we get a fire started this weekend or even today, it has the potential to spread very rapidly. Why? Because of the winds. Those winds are blowing and they can really push those fires very rapidly, especially if you got in an area that has more fuels than other areas. So those gusty winds are going to be the biggest concern along with the lower humidity. And keep in mind, the more wind events that we have this early on in the season, the quicker we're going to start to dry out a lot of the fuels that we have out there. So a lot of the greens are beginning to show signs of turning more in the way of brown, right? We start to see more of those dead fuels. And we're going to start seeing more of that in the weeks to come, especially with these winds blowing from the north, because north winds, they just suck out any moisture we have in the air and in the fuels and in the ground as well. All right, so that's going to do it. Thank you, Curtis, for, again, bringing up that El Nino deal, because, yes, the latest update came yesterday from the Climate Prediction Center, and we're still under an El Nino watch, and we still don't know 100% for sure what strength of the El Nino will be. And on top of that, even if it is a very strong El Nino, it doesn't guarantee a lot of rainfall. All right, that's going to do it for us today. What do you say we wrap up the show with some beautiful shots coming in from the North State? This is our Divine Sky camera showing the winds, but clear skies out there and a mild start to the day. I hope we all have a great Friday. Keep in mind, of course, I'm off for the weekend, but we've got Chase Wilson. He's going to keep you updated with what's going on with these, the fire danger in the works over the weekend. You can check him out. In the morning, noon, and evening, he'll have the latest for you, and I'll be right back here on Monday, 6:30. On Coffee with Krueger. Have yourselves a great Friday and an even better weekend.